Coming up next on the Breadwinning Mums. If there is one thing that all breadwinning mums can take away, what would that be?
Don't try and be everything to everyone else.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jane Lim. On the Breadwinning Mums podcast, we debunk the myths of working mums, cheer each other on, and show the world that it's okay to be a mum and still pursue excellence in your chosen area of expertise. Today we're chatting with Elissa Green, a fellow breadwinning mum who is married to her childhood sweetheart, Andrew. They have 2 children, Charlie and Ella. Elissa is a regional sales director at Salesforce. She shared with us her journey in leaving Australia to grow, the challenges she faced in conceiving her first child, and how they are able to transition back into Australia during the pandemic. Here we go with Elissa Green. Hi, Elissa. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's halfway through the week. We have another half to go.
Exactly. As I always say, happy hump day.
Yeah, that's right. So you're working from home today?
I am. I am working from home usually 2-3 days a week, but this week I am 5 days at home.
Exciting, demanding.
Exactly.
Great. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Gosh, where do I start? So I am 37, if that is of any use to anyone. I have 2 beautiful children. I have a 5-year-old boy and an almost 3-year-old girl. I have been with my husband, and people find this both delightful and very obscure all at the same time, since I was 14. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we have now spent more time together than we have apart, which is equally lovely as it is, like I said, strange. But we actually repatriated back to Australia 2 years ago now, after 10 years in Singapore, which was initially meant to be an 18-month stint and was there a decade. So, yeah.
Wow. That's life for you.
It certainly is.
Yeah. So obviously you've been with your partner for a very long time. How did you know that he was the one? I mean, 14 was such an early age, right?
It is. And it's such a funny one because at the time I didn't really, of course, when you meet someone when you're 14, you don't think they're the one. But the first time I met his mum, actually, she said to me, "Oh, he's told me he's going to marry you one day." And that was just literally within weeks of having met for the first time. And I was like, oh, crazy teenage boy, he'll get over it in no time. Yeah. But I also thought, like, there's billions of girls in the world. He'll find someone else. He just thinks it's his, one love. But I think I actually have realized as I've gotten older that he's the one. I don't know if I necessarily thought he was the one when I was younger or even in my 20s, but since having children and since, moving into a bigger role at work and realizing how supportive he is, how encouraging he is, and how much belief he has in me, it almost means that we have formed a better attachment over time.
Yeah, interesting. So you're realizing that he's the one after
after he became the one.
Yeah, that's right. He became the one. Did you guys meet in high school, or how did you know each other?
Yeah, it was actually a 14th birthday party. We both went to single sex schools.
Yeah.
So very, gender exclusive, as they would say. But we met at a 14th birthday party, which I believe he wasn't actually invited to, and turned up with a friend. And yeah, just went from there.
It was meant to be. Okay. And how old were you when you finally got together? When you got married, I meant.
20, gosh, I don't even know the years. 20, 26, 25 or 26.
Yeah.
I have to do the maths on my calculator right now. 25.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that a long engagement?
It was 11 months. So
okay.
we got engaged on the 19th of May and married on the 9th of April.
So you dated for 11 years, engaged for 11 months, and now you've been together for about 11 years again.
Exactly. There's I've never thought that 11 was my lucky number. I like the number 8.
Yeah. Very Asian.
But yeah, I am.
Singapore's got into you.
Yeah. Exactly. Whenever I used to dance, I used to ask for, if I could, the number 88 as my number, and then lived in
That's
Singapore.
my email address. Okay, there you go.
Love it.
All right. So it was a while then since after you got married until you decided that you want to have kids. Did you always know that you were going to be a mum?
I always knew that I wanted to be a mum. I had a lot of trials and tribulations in my 20s that made me think that I may not have them. I had polycystic ovaries, endometriosis. I then had a cyst that perforated in my ovaries that they thought might have sent one,
ovary?
Yeah, just basically would leave me with only one ovary to produce. And we actually then tried for about 7 years and had many, many miscarriages. I think it was 10 or 11 before I had Charlie.
Wow. Yeah.
And just as I gave up and I thought, no, this isn't meant for me, I'll go down the route of adoption. And we were just starting to look at, adoption routes in Singapore. I fell pregnant with Charlie in a window that I wasn't meant to fall pregnant, because the doctor said I had to give it a 6 or 9 month birth. Yeah. So yeah, it was a long journey, and then I thought, oh my gosh, Ella will take forever to conceive, and within 6 months it was like,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, funny how things turn out, isn't it? And I think miscarriage and infertility is something that we don't speak enough of because it's so common. And as we get older as well, we choose to start our career before we decided, to grow our family. It's such a commonplace. And I wish it's just something that we can encourage each other more of, just to keep trying, and it'll happen when it happens. It's as cliche as it sounds.
Agree. And I think that's why I speak about it as candidly as I can, not to make anyone feel awkward on the other end, but I truly believe we don't talk about it enough. And every time I speak about my experience, I find that I learn something about the other person that I'm speaking to, that they had a similar journey at one point or another. So it's super important, I think, that we air this as much as possible, because quite often it is very emotional, and it's very hard when you're sitting in it to go, oh my God, it's just me. There's something wrong with me. And it's like, well, no, it's none of those things. There's so many people that go through all of this, but just no one ever speaks about it openly. It's kind of like natural birth versus C-section and breastfeeding versus formula. It's like this, no, we don't want anyone knowing that I bottle fed my baby, or I had a C-section instead of a natural birth. Has zero impact on you and your ability to love and nurture a child. And I think that we need to almost get over those, societal misconceptions. Stigmas, exactly.
So Charlie was an especially wonderful experience then. Were you over the moon the first few months, or were you freaking out?
Yeah, I was I said to my mum when I first started to get really sick, I was like, this is so unjust. I spent so many years trying for a baby, and I've finally got to a good point, but I was so ill. I didn't stop vomiting until I was about 27 weeks.
Oh, no.
And I'll even, my husband still talks about it. I remember, flying and vomiting in pot plants at Changi Airport. I'm sure the Singapore government will be like, she's never welcome back. That is the dream, her face poster on the most wanted.
Chewing gum and vomit, totally different level.
Exactly. It was just everywhere I went, everywhere I moved, I was sick.
Yeah.
So I was very happy, but then I was also like, God, really? Was trying this long not enough? Now I have to be sick as well.
Yeah. Did you do the IVF route before you conceived?
No, okay. Didn't. It's an interesting one. I mean, I actually very early on discussed with Andrew, I didn't really want to go down that route. I don't know why. I don't have obviously a problem if that's your journey. So many people I know have gone through that and had the most beautiful, beautiful children. So you've got to do you. But it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do myself. And I just thought, if IVF is going to cost me, $20,000-$30,000 to not maybe ever eventuate in my child, then I can still be a mother through adoption or through other means.
Yeah, otherwise, yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful.
That was just kind of how I felt on that.
And so how was the second pregnancy?
Not quite as sick for quite as long. So I think I stopped vomiting at 17 weeks. I think I knew what to expect somewhat, even though each experience is a little bit different. It was more tolerable than the first.
In what way?
I just felt like I accepted it a little bit better. I kind of knew what I was in for. I knew I was probably going to be extremely unwell. So even when I stopped vomiting at 17 weeks, I was like, win. And most people that I tell that to are like, God, that's horrific. And I'm like, no. As long as
it's 10 weeks less.
Exactly. That's a lot of months I could enjoy. So it was definitely better, I think, overall. And it was really sweet going through that process with a little child and explaining to them, not in too much detail, because they don't need that when they're 1.5 and 2.5 years old, but that he was going to have a sibling and that he'd be able to feed the baby and he would be part of the process. And that was really lovely.
Yeah. Did you read the nighttime book about being a brother? I'm going to be the older brother, and this is what we can expect. Yeah,
we did. And now they're 5 and 2 and they bicker like an old married couple, and I'm like, clearly that resonate.
Yeah, at least they'll have each other, right?
Exactly. They'll have someone to bicker with for life.
Is she more bossy than her big brother?
Wow. Yeah. Fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Let's just say that. Every time she, is telling us what to do, my husband just looks at me and goes,
copy and paste.
Yeah, exactly. I will say though, conveniently, all the negative attributes, I get that face and I'm like, come on, they're so cute.
Oh dear. Yeah, mine's the same too. The youngest one just runs the house, it seems like. She tells us what to do.
Yeah. It's incredible. I think it's girls, and I said the other day to one of my friends, I was like, it's awful to parent, but wow, it'll serve her well in life.
Yeah, that's right. At least she'll be fine.
Exactly. She'll be running the country.
Yeah, that's right. So are you going to have any more, or are you 2 and done?
Definitely not. I know my limits, and I said to my sister, who's 10 years younger recently, the only reason I have kept my uterus is in case you need to borrow it, but I will not be having my own.
But you'll have it, take it. Yeah,
Exactly. I know my limits, and 2 is it.
What about career? Did you always know that you were going to be a career woman?
I don't think if I had gone back to my teenage self, I would have, namely due to a lack of self-belief. But I knew once I had graduated from university and I got into the corporate world, and that some of the qualities that you really need to be successful, which is tenacity, resilience, drive, I know they're kind of one and the same, empathy and compassion. I had all of those qualities, and I was like, I think I can really make something of myself. Sky's the limit, watch me kind of thing. But it did take, I think, until I was about 22, 23 for me to realize that. And then since then gone through a lot of growth, realized things that I was good at and not so good at. I think as a first-time manager, I was pretty shocking at a very young age. I just wanted everyone to be a cut and paste version of me. And why doesn't everyone work at the same pace?
It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But I will say that was a really great learning. I'm glad it didn't happen when I was 45. I'm glad it happened when I was 25. So that I could pivot and I could change and I could really think about the way that I was impacting other people, so that now I've almost come full circle. Still wouldn't say I'm perfect. No one is perfect. That got areas of growth, but I'm a completely different people leader today than I was, 13 years ago when I first became, a manager of individual contributors.
What happened when you're 22? What was the aha moment for you? Did something happen to catalyze that moment, or was it more of a gradual understanding?
I think it was more of a gradual understanding. Realizing that I was a very hard worker, and I would always listen and watch people that were very successful. So my first job was actually at Meltwater, and it's a really hardcore cold calling sales environment. And I remember within 2 weeks, I thought, this is not for me. I'm getting rejected everywhere I turn. I'm getting all these like awful reminders of, being bullied at school and all these things. And I sat down with my new boss, and she was like, you can do it. You'd be fantastic at this. Everyone will love you. You've just got to flick a switch and realize that it's not personal. And I kind of went away and I thought about it, and I don't think I made an immediate change, but I just started looking around the room at people that were doing really well and tried to take bits and pieces out of each of them. So I actually had one guy who would be very embarrassed that I'm speaking about him, but he now works at Salesforce too, in one of our other departments that supports our business. And I remember coming in at about 8:15 one morning, and he always looked like he'd been there since the night before, not in not in a bad way, like he had nowhere to live, but he was prospecting and he was looking at companies he could reach out to. And I was like, why do you come in so early? And he goes, New Zealand's been open for 2-3 hours, obviously depending on the time of year. And then he was always staying back late. And I was like, why? And he's like, Perth, mate, Perth. Interesting. I'm going to start coming into the office early as well. And it completely changed the span of how I even approached companies. And having 5 extra hours to work in a sales environment made me significantly more successful. And I was prospecting into more organizations and more individuals that I learned what worked and what didn't work much quicker. So that was quite instrumental for me. And just, I think, there's one thing that you can't really learn in a work environment that you just kind of grow into authentically. And it's as you get older, you just get better at understanding yourself and just evaluating and looking a little bit deeper into what are you doing that you can impact what can you not impact, and letting part of that go. So I think just as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate everything that everyone else can bring, and we don't all need to be repeat
everything for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And all try and be the same, because we're all beautiful in our own right. And you know, if someone doesn't make 1,000 calls a day and I do, that doesn't necessarily mean success either.
And what took you to Singapore initially?
I actually transferred with Meltwater. So I was there for quite some time, and I just really needed a sea change. I worked full time while I was at uni. I had 5 jobs. It's very non-PC, but people used to call me the little Mexican because I had so many jobs while I was at university, which I loved because I earned, you know, a good amount of money for someone of my age. And I never traveled. I took myself probably a little bit too seriously too young, because I was so driven and so hyper-focused on money, getting a car, getting property, having savings, that I feel like I missed that part. And so by about 26, I think we'd been married for a year. I said to Andrew, I've just got to go. I think I've just got to get out of Australia and work overseas. I said, if you don't want to come, you don't have to.
Wow.
We'll figure it out. We'll make it work.
Yep. You were determined. Yeah.
He was like, no. He resigned actually from his job.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Straight away. And he was like, wherever you go, I'm coming with you.
That's awesome.
So that was really lovely. But the GFC happened, and I'd always wanted to go to the UK. And Andrew said to me, he's got a British passport as well, but he said to me, I don't think I'll get a job. Marketing was just still really hard. So I spoke to a lot of people, and I was like, what's better, Hong Kong, Singapore? And they were like, well, Hong Kong's really cool and there's a lot of opportunity there, but it's not English speaking. And I'd had a lot of family friends that I knew had worked there at one point or another. So I was like, that's it. Mind made, Singapore. And yeah, I was only meant to be there really 18 months, but I ended up leaving Meltwater and going to LinkedIn. And so every time I looked to leave Singapore, I got another fantastic opportunity at a company I wanted to work for that I never thought would employ me. And
funny how that just happened.
It is, exactly. And then 10 years later, I was like, I really should go home now. Yeah.
Nice. And what did Andrew do when you first got to Singapore? Did he have a job lined up as well?
He did. It actually worked out very strangely. So his organisation in Australia had one employee that worked in Singapore, and some interesting things happened, none that would probably be right for this podcast. But some interesting things happened, and that person ended up having to come back to Australia.
Okay.
Take it as you will. And they said to Andrew, we would love for you to
take
do
over
this role. So it was quite impeccable timing.
Nice. How did the whole move change the dynamic of your relationship?
I think it was very challenging. There was parts of our relationship that were definitely pushed to the limits in Singapore. I traveled a lot for 3 years. I actually worked the Malaysia market when I was at LinkedIn, which I actually loved because I felt like I had the perfect balance of Malaysia and Singapore. And I went into this, you know, finding myself, and I'm living away from Australia, and my career is going quite well. And I probably did push him to the side a little bit for a long time, but I'm just very lucky. He's a very patient guy, and he's always been very encouraging and very supportive. So it is funny because we went over there for my job, and I think, interestingly, mine sort of plateaued in Singapore. I worked for fantastic companies that I always wanted to work for, but I didn't go on this steep trajectory that I had hoped. You know, I probably thought I was going to be Lee Kuan Yew by the time I left. And it didn't happen, funnily enough. You need a Singapore passport for that. But
Generations of wealth doesn't hurt either.
Exactly. And family connections. I did it all
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
But, I thought I'd go to Singapore and I'd go on this amazing career trajectory. And I think I just kind of
Yeah.
plateaued.
Yeah.
Whereas he probably went over with a not so good job, just filling a gap. And then a couple of years later got this fantastic opportunity, which then, gave him a couple of promotions and he went up a couple of levels. So yeah, it's funny how those sorts of things work. And I always say this to him because he thinks that I'm, the career woman and I'm the one that really rules the roost. And while I am the boss, I don't want him to think otherwise. He probably did do better in Singapore than I did, I think, career-wise.
Yeah.
He would have been a brand manager still probably in Australia if he'd stayed here. There was a little bit of short-term pain, but I think a lot more long-term gain.
What made it work with you guys during those 3 years when you were traveling back and forth between Singapore and Malaysia, and he felt like he was being put on the sideline? How did you guys make it happen?
Well, I mean, I went back every kind of weekend, obviously, to Singapore. I don't know. I think it was just, realizing that we were actually both there for each other and we didn't go over there independently, and we needed to be supportive of each other's careers, but also where we feel like we fit in each other's lives.
That's interesting because that changes over time as well, right?
It does massively.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's on me. I mean, I just massively took him for granted because it was like, he'll always be there. We've been there forever. We've grown together. And it was like, no, Elissa, you need to take a step back. He's a really good guy. And you just need to appreciate that he's done everything to kind of come with you along the journey. And now I need to maybe take a step back and think about what his needs are and how I can fit into him a little bit more. Life is not a dictatorship. So, again, all these life learnings, everyone's not here to serve Elissa. So I think that's been, good for me to learn and think about as well. Not that I ever didn't care, because I am obviously not obviously, but I am a caring person. I'm not ruthless and heartless, but I think I've just been so ambitious and so tunnel focused sometimes that I've been like, no, I just need to get here and this is the next step. But I'm doing this for us because I want us to save enough for a property, and he'll thank me in 10 years. And it's like, I left him behind rather than take him with me.
Yeah. You focus so much on the long term that you forget about the present and what really matters now. And, what you do today will actually affect the future. And I think that's actually something that really driven women can share in common. Did something happen to make you think, what's my role in this and how can I better fit my role in his life? Or was it just something that you have on the back of your mind continuously?
It's something that I have in the back of my mind continuously, but I would say the catalyst was having Charlie. Just honestly, having a child is so hard. Anyone that's been through it, it's more than you ever anticipate.
Yes.
I always thought, well, I was a fantastic older sister. I'm very nurturing. I babysat. I still speak to the kids that I babysat. They loved me. Yeah. It's completely different. No. There is no break. There is no turn off button.
There's no sleep.
There's hormones. There's no sleep. There's in Singapore returning to work in 3 months, 4 months.
Oh no.
Which I did with Charlie. And he has just been so unbelievably supportive. And I do find it a little bit polarizing sometimes because he has been unbelievably supportive and amazing. And that was pivotal for me, hearing some other horror stories from my friends or, acquaintances about their husband's lackluster investment in their children. But, he'd get up in the middle of the night and we would share feeds. And I had a lot of trouble breastfeeding. So we got to a point where I let that go and he was just bottle fed. And we divided and conquered. And
no one tells you how much breastfeeding is gonna it's so painful, it's so hard, and it takes a toll out of you, and it's time consuming. So I don't know, it's just like no one really prepares you for that, or just child rearing in general.
No, exactly. And even little things, I like to think I'm of relative intelligence, and I didn't go into having children completely blind, but I remember having Charlie at 6-7 weeks, and he dropped about 700 grams in weight, and I was like, but I've got so much milk and I don't understand, like I'm pumping, I'm getting 1,000 ml a day, like this is crazy. And I remember the doctor going, how much hind milk are you getting out? And I was like, what do you mean hind milk? I'm not a cow. And he was like, the back milk, it's the fatty stuff. And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, next time you pump, have a look at basically the layer.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like mind blowing to me. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I realized that I just had shit quality milk. I had lots of it, great hydrator, but he wasn't putting on any weight because I didn't have enough fat in my milk. And I'm persevering and I'm pumping and I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm like, why is this poor kid losing weight? And the doctor was like, look, I really appreciate that you're trying very hard, but you haven't got enough fat in your milk. You're going to have to supplement with formula, whether you like it or not, or he's never going to put on weight. So yeah, that's the breastfeeding cluster. But
was that devastating for you? Did you take it personally, like most moms would?
It was. And I think just, again, the stigma, everyone judges you. Did you try hard enough?
Yeah.
Are you sure, like, it wasn't just you? And it's like, you know what, even if it was just me, if I'm on the brink of having a nervous breakdown or on the brink of depression, which I did feel like I was at that point, I don't need to hear that from what should be describe other women. And it was never men. Men don't care about the way that you conceive a baby. They never ask you, oh, was that IVF or was that natural? Was that a sperm donor? No one ever asked that. Was it natural? Was it C-section? It was always other women. And I just found that also really hard. It's like we're all meant to be here and support each other.
It is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because with my mother's group as well, we were all there during the infancy till at least the first birthday. And we trade stories, when we're up at 3:00 in the morning. Oh my God, my baby's not sleeping or whatever. I trade stories, but it can be that, I wouldn't say judgmental, but just snide comments that you could take wrongly. Otherwise, under the hormones, under sleep deprivation, it just can come out wrong.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think, and don't get me wrong, again, I'm not perfect. I'm sure I give my unsolicited feedback as well, accidentally. But I do think when you're a new mum, you often just need an ear, not a mouth. Like it's just, listen to me. I don't need your opinion, be it objective or subjective. I just need you to literally listen to me. So yeah, I just realized I was very lucky with Andrew being so supportive and just really helping. And it feels funny saying that because it's like he's an equal part parent as I am, but he has just been so supportive. And I've realized as well through just the transition of coming back to Australia and getting the kids, comfortable and happy and building our life again here, he really is like 100% my partner in crime. And we wholly contribute to each other's lives. Like I don't know how I would operate in life without him, and I like to think that he would think the same about me. But we literally we divide and conquer, and we do everything together. He is as much a parent as I am. And that also means that I can pursue all my hopes and dreams of running the world and being the next CEO of Salesforce. Probably not the next one, probably a couple down, but living up to all my life's aspirations as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Any certain things that you guys do to make it such a beautiful dynamic? Any certain rituals or just weekly things?
No, we probably do need to do more of that. We need to find a good regular babysitter firstly. But no, I think we have this, we're just very lucky. We have probably just this chemistry and understanding and deep, probably unspoken about, but very deep love and respect for each other. And it works. Like, he is absolutely, I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. I never get emotional when I talk about this. Absolutely my soulmate. I'm very lucky, and just very lucky I probably met him when I did, because it's a lot of years together.
Yeah. Beautiful. And what brought you back here?
I'm going to get more emotional now. My mother-in-law was very unwell. So, yeah, we ended up coming back to Australia. We were going to come back anyway, but it was definitely a year earlier than what we initially anticipated, which I'm very glad we did, because she ended up passing away. So
so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we got that extra time with her, which was good.
Yeah. Okay. And how is parenting different from Singapore and in here in Sydney?
It's really interesting. I will say, I said a lot of fucks today, but I'm going to say another one. It fucking pisses me off when people are like, oh, you must be really struggling. You would have had so much help over there. Don't get me wrong. I did have help, and I had this amazing lady who I still speak to weekly, very regularly, actually, Lizzie, who is definitely my Filipino sister from another mister. But you know, I worked like crazy as well. So it's not like I sat there on my throne and had someone kind of falling over me and doing everything for me. I did loads for the kids, you know, helped with the washing, did the food shopping. They all came with us everywhere. I went back to full-time work when Charlie was 14 weeks old.
Wow.
So, you know, there's pros and cons everywhere, and I mean, didn't have family or anything like that. So there's been some adjustments, I think, coming back, but it's been a much easier transition than what I thought it would be. Probably alleviated by the fact that we have had COVID, and I've been able to work at home.
Do they have Singlish accent?
My kids know.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know that's an awful thing to say. There's a lot I loved about Singapore. Singlish is not one of them.
Yeah. Something with Singlish, right?
I definitely can see why the PM trying to eradicate it for so many years, because it's very strange. But okay. In saying that, when I watched some of the videos played back from Singapore, I actually had a Singlish accent.
Really?
Yeah.
The shortcuts, I guess. Yeah. The phrases rather than the accent.
Totally. And Canla.
You know, in the right context, it actually feels nice, right? When you say it.
It does. And I remember even when I first came back to Australia, and I was saying to my mum all the time, can? She was like, can what?
One of my best friends moved to Hong Kong, and she's just recently said that as well on WhatsApp, and I'm like, I can hear your Chinglish on WhatsApp.
It's so funny. But I mean, I had a lot of Singaporean friends who I socialized with, so I think it probably wore off over time. And 10 years is a long time as well. So that hasn't stuck around, which is probably quite lucky. It's not something my husband was particularly fond of.
Yeah. Okay. And so what is life for you like now? So you're a director at Salesforce?
I am. So I'm currently the regional sales director of one of our actually 3 verticals for our marketing cloud division. I manage 6 strategic enterprise AEs, and I didn't actually go straight into that role. I came back as an individual contributor, but got promoted about 6 months back. So I've got a beautiful team of 6 strategic AEs who look after some of our biggest enterprise accounts in Australia. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of hours. My husband says a lot of probably unnecessary conversations, but we'll call them conversations all the same. A lot of meetings. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And what's home life for you now? The kids are still, I think, pre-kindy age?
Yeah, well, Charlie's now in kindy, so he's loving school. He's got a beautiful little bestie, which I think is so sweet. I don't know if I ever had a single best friend that I knew was my best friend at school, and vice versa. So I love that he has that. And Ella is preschool. She's just gone into 5 days a week. We just moved house about 3 weeks ago. So I now feel like, even though we've been back for almost 2 years,
you've just settled in.
I'm finally gonna get my feet a little bit more grounded, which is good.
Yeah, that's good. And you have the weekend to family now, or is the work still quite demanding?
Yeah, I mean, work is demanding, but I also think we're very lucky now in terms of the 9 to 5 doesn't necessarily exist in its traditional form. And sometimes, we have to take an hour or 2 hours out during the day, and we choose to make that up whenever we see fit. So I'm okay doing some work on the weekend. I'm okay doing some work in the evenings. What I don't like is when my team messages me at 9:30 at night, because I'm like, why are you working?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be working.
You should go back. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm okay if I have bits and pieces that I have to get completed.
If you could go back to the time when you have decided to go to Singapore or leave Australia and explore yourself, knowing what you know now, if you could give yourself one advice, what would that be?
Oh, know your worth and be patient.
That's very deep. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And what's your alpha mom song?
Oh, I don't know. I do have something funny with my kids, which everyone will cringe at, that I've always, it's not my alpha mum song, but I actually sing the Single Ladies to my kids all the time. And where it stems from is my son loved the video clip when he was very little. And so I would sing it with him, and we would
do the dance, of course, with
together.
The hand.
Yeah, exactly. When he was like 18 months old. And so since then, I just always sing that song to them when I'm trying to get a laugh.
Yeah.
They both cringe already, and they're 2 and 5. So when I sing that to them when they're teens, they'll die from the inside out. Christ, here she goes again. She's so loose.
At least you have that emotional connection.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time off your really busy schedule. If there is one thing that all breadwinning mums can take away, what would that be?
Oh, I always say this, so my calendar's going crazy. As I say this ironically, don't try and be everything to everyone else.
Thank you so much for listening to Breadwinning Mums. Please subscribe and leave us some feedback so we can continue to make the show better for you. If you know a fellow breadwinning mum, please share the show so we can cheer each other on. Until next time.